Me where I wanted to record. Oh, all right, it's recording. It didn't ask me where I wanted it to be stored. So it says recording, so we'll just go with that.
Going somewhere in the cloud.
I guess so. Um, well, I hope it's not just the three of us, that there's actually a handful more that might be interested in this topic. But I know with AI as the competing as the competing topic, um, that it might be interesting to see who we end up with. So I'll just give folks a minute. Hello, Kate. Thanks for joining. We'll get rolling here in just a minute. I was hoping a handful more would be joining, although I didn't get a head count from Joe beforehand. I'm not sure if she like split up the workshop so we could see who all would be attending and whatnot. So what do you think? Should I get rolling here or?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Love it. All right. I don't have high activator. Let me share my
Top
whole
five.
You know I
desktop.
do. This is
Yeah.
number nine.
I do. I know you do. There we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And one of you just give me a thumbs up that you're just seeing the cover slide there. Perfect. All right. Well, this is a nice, small, cozy group. So I love it. We can have like good interactive discussion. Please take yourselves off of mute. Marina, looks like you're the only one that's on mute at the moment. So please let's just have a conversation. Strength-based sobriety is that's what this topic is really all about. And I'm the sober strengths coach that's out there. And it's such a pleasure to be able to speak with this small workshop today and to be invited to Joe's forum just in general. It's quite an honor. So thank you guys for attending. I just wanted to give a real quick background on myself. I am Gallup certified strengths coach. I was certified in 2015 and an accredited sobriety coach. Got certified in 2023. So just over a year or so, I've been certified as a sobriety coach as well. Um, my top five strengths, and actually top 10 are on the screen there: learner, achiever, responsibility, input, futuristic, intellection, focus, belief, relator, analytical. And I wanted to share just a little bit about myself before I just dove into the slides. Some of you guys know me a little bit better than others here. So um, as a strengths coach, I've been studying strengths for over a decade, and this workshop is really geared toward other strengths coaches who might be interested in learning about sobriety and the strengths-based approach. It's also for coaches or coaches who might be interested in working with their clients on a strengths-based approach to sobriety and really going alcohol-free. So I'm going to use that term kind of interchangeably, whether it's alcohol-free or sobriety. My journey in terms of sobriety started about 3 years ago, and I use the term sober curious loosely here because clearly was not curious at all about becoming sober. I just knew I had a little bit of an issue with alcohol, and it was starting to interfere with several aspects of my life, and started this learning journey in late 2021. I really leaned on my learner talents. I signed up for a group course that I really didn't know what I was signing up for, to be honest. And as it turned out, it was a daily lesson delivered to your inbox. It was a little group support group that was video chat based. And what I didn't really realize was how much I didn't know about the impacts of alcohol on the brain, the body, the systems. Those daily lessons came out I took a 21-day challenge, and over those 21 days, every day's lesson was something interesting, something new. And what I didn't really learn until several months later was that I was instinctively leaning on my talents in these first couple of weeks, first couple of months, and my instinctive learner input, intellection, those talents I really tapped into as I was learning and just taking in. It wasn't just about achieving the 21 days alcohol free. It became much more of that in those first couple of weeks. So I started in 2021 with a little bit of maybe some curiosity. I got much more curious as I started to learn. I did a dry January in 2022, And that's really when I started to learn a lot more about the impacts of alcohol and kind of untangling why I was drinking in the first place. So from there, I started this kind of sober curious journey. And in April of 22, since then, I've been alcohol free. So going on 3 years almost. What I learned was I can really couple this approach with a strengths based type of approach with going alcohol free. I had the strengths background. I was missing a little bit of the sobriety, some of the neuroscience and the well being and the aspect of going alcohol free and all of the nutrition aspects. So that's why I did my additional sobriety coach certification back last year. So, with that, just as a little bit of background, I have four main things that I want to cover today. The first is really understanding what gray area drinking is, what it means, and if that's a term that you're not familiar with, I'm going to walk you through kind of 5 signs of what gray area drinking is all about. Again, this is for use for yourselves, for your clients, for your friends, for your family, just to get a little bit of education around gray area drinking as a concept. We'll discuss the impact of alcohol use on the 5 elements of well-being. So I really tap into Gallup's well-being research, and I'm going to share all of the 5 elements and looking at it from a lens of sober curiosity and for going thriving alcohol-free. The third thing is I'm going to teach you how to aim your talents or your strengths at any of your life's challenges, which many of us as strengths coaches, we already know we can aim them at our challenges. But this is a little bit a different spin on it, where we can really aim our talents at our relationship with alcohol. And then 4 is really learning how to rewire your subconscious beliefs about the benefits that alcohol provides. That takes a little bit more deep thinking. It's a little bit out of scope of a 50-minute workshop, but I'm going to try to get into this a little bit today to understand what our subconscious beliefs really contribute to our relationship with alcohol. And once you kind of understand how to rewire or untangle those beliefs, then the famous saying is, without desire, there is no temptation. So if you don't have desire in the first place, then there's no temptation around drinking alcohol in the first place, which is what some people really struggle with, is that temptation and the craving piece. So with just a quick small group, I thought I would do just a very quick poll. And this is not meant to be, of a spectrum per se, but it is kind of a categorization. And I just wanted to throw this out there, go ahead and put it in the chat if you don't mind. If you would describe like where you are on the sober curious spectrum, if you're completely alcohol free, solidly sober, I like to call it, maybe a little sober curious. That would be number 2. If you're an every now and then drinker, I'd love to hear where you fall in that category. Maybe a regular drinker, whatever that means to you, or a 5 would be a heavy drinker. Nora, thanks for joining. We just did a quick intro. What I call my sobriety coaching space, is a judgment-free zone. So this is a nice small group, no judgment. And it was really just kind of to think about, for me, how to kind of cater to my audience here. So thank you for including your responses there. So I'm going to just dive right into what is gray area drinking and what is that all about? So there's really kind of 5 ways to think about what is gray area drinking. And this term was coined by a woman named Jolene Park, who did this TED Talk back in 2017. She coined the term gray area drinking, and it really spans the spectrum between every now and then drinking, so that 3 on the slide, on the previous slide, to heavy drinking, but really the far end of the spectrum would be considered a rock bottom, or those that experience really tragic things in their lives due to drinking. So, the folks that have a really hard time with DUIs or lost jobs, marriages, suffering, etc., that type of rock bottom approach. As I described the every now and then to the rock bottom, that's a wide spectrum of drinking habits. And when we look at what gray area drinking, it's really anywhere in between that spectrum. So more than every now and then, which would be, I don't know, once a month, once a year, to the rock bottom, which I already mentioned, anywhere in between is considered gray area drinking. And there's these 5 tips that you can start to think about. And again, you can use this with your clients, with friends, with family members. And it's really just to kind of educate getting all of us on the same playing field here with some terminology that I'll use throughout the workshop today. The first one is if you secretly worry about or regret your drinking. The second one is I just mentioned you drink between those two extremes of rock bottom and every now and then drinking. The third one is you can stop drinking and might have been able to for weeks or months in the past, but it keeps sneaking back in. The next one is number 4, your drinking often doesn't look problematic to others around you. And number 5 is you try to ignore that nagging little voice inside of your head that whispers, it's time to do something about this. And the voice that says, just live a little. It's your reward at the end of a tough day. It's how you have fun, connect with others. It helps you sleep. So those are some of the thoughts. That number 5 were some of the thoughts that I used to have with my drinking was I did have this nagging little voice that said, maybe it's time to do something about this. And then I would kind of quiet it down. And then it would pop back up again, usually after some embarrassing moment or something I had done or waking up with a hangover, but just some of that embarrassment and shame around some my previous drinking habits. So those are kind of 5 tips. I wanted to just kind of get us a little bit acclimated around some of that terminology. And then looking at, I'm going to switch gears here, looking at the 5 elements of well-being and the impact of drinking habits on each of the 5 elements. Now, I titled this workshop on thriving alcohol-free, and I wanted to just start with a couple definitions of thriving. Gallup uses this term, so I've adopted it in my slides of what thriving is all about. So it's when you have well-being that's strong, consistent, and progressing in a particular element. That's thriving. And there's 5 elements of well-being. I'm going to talk about that next on the next slide. Struggling is where your well-being might be moderate or inconsistent in a particular area or element. And then suffering is well-being that's at a very low or at a high risk in a particular element. So just quick show of hands, is anyone familiar with this research by Gallup of the 5 elements of well-being? Okay, so most of you, yes, a handful, no. I'm going to walk us through this real quick and then kind of talk about each of the 5 elements in the context of drinking habits. So Gallup studied, you're probably familiar with the Well-Being at Work book. They have studied more than 98% of the world's population, which is just incredible that they've studied that many people in the world. And they've uncovered these 5 themes or elements that people need to thrive in their lives. The 5 elements are the career, you like what you do every day. Social, you have meaningful friendships or relationships in your life. Financial is you manage your money well. Physical well-being is you have the energy to get things done. And then community is you like where you live. So I'm going to start with thriving in physical well-being. And the way it's further defined is that it's a concept around managing your health so that you have the energy to do the things that you want to do. And when we think about our lives, what we have the most control over are our alcohol intake, right? In the context of drinking habits or going alcohol free, exercise, diet, sleep, right? So those are kind of the 4 main categories there of what we have control over, right? To be thriving in physical well-being. So now this applies to anyone on anywhere on the drinking spectrum. I know some of you are solidly sober or completely alcohol free, but these questions really apply to all areas, just looking at physical well-being in general. The third bullet there, obviously, the alcohol influence, right? Is it impacting your physical well-being? But aside from that, let's think about the days where you have the most physical and mental energy, and what do those days have in common? What can you do to boost your energy today? And then what about tomorrow? Is alcohol impacting your sleep, for example? What can you do when in terms of managing your energy? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Is it impacting your physical well-being overall? Fourth bullet there is what new habits could you start building to support your physical well-being goals? What goals might you have? Do you have physical well-being goals? Do you have a goal to run a 5K around Thanksgiving time? That's my personal goal. How can you start to incorporate physical activity into your workday? A really great tip that kind of combines several well-being elements is having walking meetings with colleagues, not just sitting out in front of a desk, but you're combining social well-being and physical well-being at the same time. Is go for a walk around your office, around the outside of the building, for example. But what are some other ideas to incorporate physical activity into your workday? And where do you need help? Sometimes we need help with these things, right? When it comes to your physical well-being efforts, maybe it means going to the gym and hiring a trainer, for example. Those are some things that you can do to really impact your physical well-being. So I'm going to move on to social well-being, and this is about having meaningful friendships and relationships in our lives. The questions here are, what kind of meaningful relationships do you have? And do you have meaningful relationships that don't revolve around drinking? I know in my social circles, many of my friends drank pretty heavily, and it just was part of our social culture. Um, Parties, barbecues, other social events, there was always alcohol involved, which is pretty common, but especially in my friend zone, it was definitely very common where there was, more than, heavy drinking, I would say, on social occasions. So if you are on this sober curious journey, or if your friends, family members, or clients are on this sober curious journey, then what options are there to make social connections with people, with other people also on the same journey? If you're alcohol free, what kind of connections do you have with people who also don't drink that can maintain your sobriety? Some general questions is just about how you can spend more time with a friend or colleague today. Just joining this Zoom room is one where we get to spend some time with some friends and colleagues and get to know each other a little bit better. Think to yourself, who would enjoy hearing from me? What kind of meaningful conversations might you have with someone who you might want to just take a moment and reach out today? Who can provide friendship and how can you provide friendship and support to someone in your network? And I encourage you to take action right this minute. Jot down that person's name on a sticky note. And after this workshop, there's a 10-minute break. Send them a quick text, a quick email. Let them know you're thinking about them. So take action today. Why wait, right? The third element is community well-being. So this is an interesting one about having community and feeling safe and secure where they live, taking pride in their community, and feel that it's headed in the right direction. This often results, people who have that are thriving in community well-being. This is interesting. People this often results in wanting to give back and make a lasting contribution in society. So the question here is, do you like where you live? Do you feel a sense of community? Sometimes this may apply to literally where you lay your head every night where you live. It can also apply to other types of communities, whether it's a sober curious community, whether it's your church or synagogue that you're a community member, a part of. And the questions here are really, what kind of community of like-minded people do you spend your time with? Do you have that community connection? If not, what's one community event that you could get involved with? There's plenty of volunteer opportunities out there that could give you the sense of feeling safe and secure where you live, but also by giving back to the community in which you live in. So some action planning steps here are thinking about how can you contribute to your community based on your personal mission. Do you feel really strongly about environmental causes or about volunteer opportunities with your local pet shelter, for example? Those are a couple community-based organization ideas that you might be able to tap into. The Sober Club, a little plug for that, is an excellent online sobriety community group, but there's tons of them out there. I happen to be certified by the Sober Club. I'm not affiliated like financially with them at all, other than that's who I got my training from, but they run an outstanding Facebook group. There's tons of other ones out there, like the Alcohol Experiment, like the Luckiest Club. There's plenty of alcohol-free types of support communities. The next one is, let's do the next one, financial well-being. So people high in financial well-being manage their personal finances well and spend their money wisely. So what are your financial goals? What additional tools, skills, or resources? Again, sometimes we need to pull from outside resources to achieve your goals or consult an expert, right? The piece where it's linked to alcohol habits or to drinking habits is looking at your alcohol spending. How much are you actually spending on buying alcohol? I used to have an app that I kept up with, and it was counting my days of sobriety and kind of tracking my progress. And it got up to something like $30,000 that I had saved by not drinking. It was like incredible. All of the money that even just a couple bottles of wine, a week really can add up very quickly. So evaluating your spending is a way, whether it's related to alcohol or not, that you might be thinking about meeting your financial goals. What habits might you need to modify? What can you do today that can have a positive influence on your long-term financial goals? Brainstorm new habits, hobbies that are cost-effective and promotes saving money. A couple of the best practices here on the slide is about buying experiences because that's what lasts, where material purchases may fade, right? Spending on others, it's another way of giving back and also connects that to your social well-being. And then last but not least, the fifth area of well-being is career well-being. This is you like what you do every day. And I saved this one for last because it is really the foundation of thriving in our lives. Um, People with high career well-being are more than twice as likely to be thriving in their lives overall. So without that foundation of career well-being, it's likely that the rest of them are not going to fall into place. We've really got to spend a lot of our time and energy on making sure we like what we do every day. It can also be the source of some over drinking when you don't like what you do every day or when you're stressed at work. Turning to alcohol, is that what's happening to you, your friends, your family members, or your clients? So if you think about this quote on the screen, I love this, that when an employee is thriving in their career, they live for the weekend mindset fades or it disappears altogether. The drop in mood from Sunday to Monday is essentially cut in half. These employees are more productive, creative, innovative, because they find their work intrinsically rewarding. So whether you're an individual contributor, you're a manager, you're an executive, you want to feel this way of thriving in your careers. You want your team members. If you're a manager, you want your teams. If you're an executive, you want your whole organizational culture to feel this way, right? Thriving in their career. The research points out that to create thriving and resilient teams, it has to start with thriving individuals. And that means you, it means all of us. So I would just ask, why are you potentially, like, why are people that are listening to this maybe drinking that in unhealthy ways? And I'll share my own experience that I was a stress drinker is how I kind of label myself, although I don't like labels. But I was drinking to relieve stress in a job that while I did like, it just became overwhelming. I was suffering from burnout. I was using alcohol to self-medicate. I had a really demanding travel schedule. I used to drink wine on the plane while I was traveling and usually stop and have a couple glasses of wine with dinner. I mean, those were my daily habits. And as I look back on it, I can definitely label it as self-medicating to manage my stress. What I didn't know at the time was that alcohol actually causes stress and anxiety. It causes you to not just wake up with a hangover because I wasn't hungover all the time, but it causes you to have disrupted sleep. Even one glass of wine disrupts your sleep. So when it comes to just all of the research out there, when it comes to the impact of alcohol on all of our brain and body systems, it really does have a huge impact, and I just didn't realize it. So these are questions that we can start to ask ourselves and our clients, our friends, our family members, to think about all five of these elements of well-being. And is alcohol impacting, especially this last one on career well-being? Is it impacting the rest of them as well? So, regardless of your sober status, I want us to all take action and think about today. If what rung of the ladder do you stand on today? If one is your worst possible life and 10 is your best possible life, considering all of the five elements of well-being, um, and you want to move up the rung, doesn't matter which rung you're starting on, but today, let's say you're on rung five. You want to move up the rung a couple spots by 1 year from now. If you could imagine 1 year from now moving up that ladder, which element of well-being would you take action on starting today? And I would love to hear in the chat. Let's just take a moment, since we're a nice small group here, to make some commitments to ourselves and to each other. Financial, and then specifically, what commitment will you make? What will you do differently, or what will you start doing as a result of listening to these five elements? Sometimes it's good to hear a refresher, even if you're familiar with the research, right? What's the so physical, financial, I see another vote for physical. What specifically will you do? Let's make a commitment. Ah, Kate says I need to pay off my Visa bill, starting with canceling. Oh, that's a really good one. Starting with canceling some recurring subscriptions that are a bit out of date.
Bougie.
Bougie, a bit bougie. That's a good one, Kate. Thanks for that. Tara says I need to go ahead, Tara.
Well, so for me, I have been so pouring into my career and other areas of well-being that it's taking away from my physical well-being. So
Mm,
I'm still relatively healthy. I sleep 8 hours a day and I hike one to 2 days a week. I probably lift weights once every 2 weeks, and that's not enough. So
mm.
not at my age. So it's I'm prioritizing other things that are important to me, and I feel like the other areas of well-being are really high. This is the one that I need to work on. Years ago, I would have said that there were other areas, but I think I've worked on those. So
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, physical sometimes is can be challenging for all of us. That's one that I'm committing to doing my spin class tomorrow morning. So I'll join in making a commitment with everybody here.
yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. So I want to,
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Nora.
I actually have had a struggle these last 2 years. My mother passed away a year ago this month,
Mm.
and and she was in hospice for 5 weeks. And I saw the toll on her body, but had she not been as physically active and taking care of her eating for 89 years, we might have lost her
Wow.
years ago. And my dad is now 90, and he had been golfing in March, and since mid-April has had health issues and is now in hospice.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry to hear that.
but your questions about um, what can I do? Having spent time with my parents in hospice, and they've lived to be much, they're depression children, so much, much
Mm.
older than you would have thought. But it was because of their, I don't want to say clean lifestyle, but just the way they lived. And it reminded me that I live out here on a farm, and I should be out moving around. I should, I can walk my dogs, for God's sakes. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part of is, instead of seeing it as a negative that I have to do, I just have to get that mental shift in that I've been blessed with living out here, and I want to enjoy it, take advantage of it so I can live to be 90.
Yeah, and have
Maybe,
a healthy
maybe.
body. Well, and be healthy enough to sustain a body at 90, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really easy things like taking the dog for a walk, right? That we can incorporate into our daily habits.
Yeah. And give myself recognition that that is exercise.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that counts for sure.
The best
Yeah.
exercise is the one we'll do, and it's the things that don't feel like work, right? That bring us joy. That's
Right.
my hiking in the woods with my dog and husband is feeds my connectedness, and it's like meditative or something. But I also get to bond with them, so it's like a two for one.
Yeah, that's great. Then you get social connection, you get that family connection with the dog and the husband.
Mhm.
That's great. So I want to give you a framework that you're probably familiar with when we start to shift gears here a little bit, and that is to talk about strengths and how can we use strengths to really thrive alcohol-free. This framework you're probably familiar with. It's called Name It, Claim It, Aim It. And as strengths coaches, which many of us are on the call today, we learn this framework that we start with just naming our strengths and understanding what they're all about. Claiming it is that piece about really taking ownership and taking pride for what our strengths are. Aiming it is where we can productively aim our talents at any of our life's challenges or even just at our to-do lists. But how are we aiming our talents at many areas of our life? And I want to give you some examples of how I'm using CliftonStrengths in a strengths-based approach to coaching people in sobriety space, and also how we can just aim our talents and help people who might be sober curious or seeking long-term sobriety. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples. This one is just, if you recall the research that was published, I wanted to just start with some common strengths and think about the ones that were published in 2023 last year, the people's top 5. The most common top 5 last year were relator, responsibility, achiever, learner, restorative. So since those were the most common, I'm going to start with those 5, and then I've got a couple bonus strengths, and I'll tell you where you can read all 34 of the, not just these 5, but all 34 of the action steps for all of our strengths. So first one is relator. We know what relator talents mean. They enjoy close relationships with others. They find deep satisfaction towards working with friends to achieve a goal. So if you're sober curious, then find your sober tribe. If you're sober serious or you're already alcohol free, how can you make a meaningful connection with at least one other person in a sobriety community to help you maintain your sobriety? So that's the tip for relator talents. Those with relator really like to have those good, meaningful connections. This would be another one you could apply also to high connectedness. I know in this community, um, in in this forum, connectedness is our number 2 talent as a group. So this would be another one that you could apply to that one, is finding meaningful connections in a sobriety community group. The next one on the list I have is responsibility. So responsibility talents deliver on commitments. They're loyal, they're dependable. I know my responsibility was kind of aggravated when I let myself down as it related to my drinking. So the habit here, or the action step, is to make a commitment to someone that you respect, someone that you enjoy spending time with, someone that you would feel dependable and loyal to. So I have a couple of examples, like your friends, a spouse, a colleague, someone that you would feel comfortable sharing this commitment to. It's the external commitment that responsibility talents bring to the table that's going to drive and motivate you to keep that promise. So make a commitment to go alcohol free for a week, for 2 weeks, for 30 days, for 6 months, whatever that goal that feels right to you. But make a commitment externally, because that's what's going to drive you to deliver on that commitment. The third one I have is achiever talents. Now, achiever talents look a little similar to responsibility talents about getting outcomes. So the outcome of responsibility and achiever both are driven to get work done, but one is internally motivated, and that's achiever, where responsibility is externally driven or externally motivated, right? So achiever loves to-do lists. They love getting things done. They have a great stamina. They take great satisfaction in being busy, being productive. So kind of coupled with the idea of responsibility talents is when you make this commitment, it's a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to setting this realistic goal, whatever this goal might be for you. Maybe it is a lifetime goal, and that's great if that's a lifetime goal. Most people have a hard time with biting that off. There's a saying in sobriety circles that you're never going to know if you achieve that goal. If you say, I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life, you won't know the answer to that if you've achieved that goal until you're dead, right? So that's really kind of an unrealistic goal to set. But when I work with clients, I always encourage them to say, let's just set something realistic, maybe a stretch goal for you. And especially with achiever talents, those clients are They are going to meet that goal. They are internally, intrinsically motivated to meet that goal. I always recommend to people start with a month. A month is a stretch goal that might feel a little uncomfortable to say if you're a regular or a heavy drinker. A month is going to sound like a long time. If 30 days seems easy, then go for 100 days. Once you get to those triple digits, 100 days feels incredible. Once you get to a couple hundred days, there's that motivation to keep on going. So that's how my achiever number 2 works. I'm almost 900 days. I lost count, but I'm getting close to getting my comma, which is what we also say in sobriety circles. Not quite at 1,000 days, but I'm getting close. So my achiever talents are definitely fed by counting the days, and I don't count anymore. I just have an app for that. There's an app for that. It's free, actually, Nora. So I'm not paying for that one. The next couple of them, let's do learner talents. So learner talents loves the learning process. It's all about continuous improvement, has a curious mindset. I mentioned my learner is number 1. This is the talent that really lit up when I did my first initial stint of sobriety, that first challenge that I did. So lean on that love of learning. I have a 31-day course that I offer. So like if that were of interest to you, then that's something with high learner talents that people would find interesting and learn all about the brain, the body, the impacts of alcohol. A few Quitlet books. That was a new term to me. I had never heard that before of what Quitlet is all about, but you can be really inspired by listening or reading about other people's stories. Likewise with podcasts. So learning about other people's sober, curious journeys and how they got sober can be really inspiring to people. So that's my tips for the learner talents. And then last but not least, I've got a couple more that I'll also share with you here. But last in that top 5 from last year's was restorative. So problem-solving approach is restorative talents. This issue with alcohol, your relationship with alcohol is not a problem that someone with restorative talents can't handle. So leverage this problem-solving ability to develop solutions that will work for you. You know what works best for you. You know what problem-solving approaches work best if you have restorative talents. So you're not going to be inclined to run away from these types of challenges. And then I have 2 other talents so these are all talents where you can really leverage and work on how you can see aiming these talents at your alcohol-free goals might be pretty easy to do. But I have 2 talents that sometimes can get us stuck when it comes to thriving alcohol-free. And that's the first one of those is what to watch out for. There's 2 talents that I've identified in my work with clients that what to watch out for with is one of them is high empathy. So people with high empathy sense other people's feelings by imagining themselves in others' lives or situations. People high in empathy sometimes drown out those high emotions with alcohol. And I've seen it in pretty much every client that I have coached in the alcohol-free space that they have high empathy. And that's what they are doing is they're trying to numb out the tough emotions because they take on emotions from others without thinking about it, without trying. So the real key to someone with high empathy talents is to honor that sensitive side and that emotional side by acknowledging when do those tough situations and those tough emotions surface. Really seeing empathy as a superpower and not as something that you want to drown out. And so that's a lot of my work with people with high empathy. That's the kinds of conversations that I'm having with them. So the what to watch out for is not taking on those negative emotions that make you want to numb out with a drink because you can't selectively numb, right? When you're numbing the bad emotions, you're also numbing the good emotions. So your emotional bandwidth just becomes this, much smaller when you're drinking normally, regularly, or heavily. And then the next one I have is high activator. So activator is another one to watch out for. It's a ready, fire, aim talent, makes things happen by turning thoughts into actions. If you have high activator talents, you don't need a long-term sobriety plan. Just take one day at a time. That's that jump right in, make things happen, but it can also be impulsive. So this impulsive nature of activator might make you say F it and pick up a drink at just whenever you want. So if you are looking at, some longer term sobriety types of solutions, or if you're on that sober curious spectrum with high activator, this is one to watch out for and be careful with. So I wrote a guide, happy to share it with you. It is on the screen here, just a screenshot of it. I wrote a guide for all 34 CliftonStrengths action steps for all 34 of them. And I just shared the 5 that were the most common from 2023, plus the 2 extras of what to watch out for. But if you are interested in seeing the entire guide, you can download it on my website. It's free, no cost or anything. And the URL is right there at the bottom of the screen. All right, I am going to not take questions now because I want to make sure I cover this third piece here and make sure I don't run over on my time. The fourth piece of the workshop was about it's called the liminal process. Has anyone heard of this? The liminal process? All right, you guys are gonna like this. It starts with understanding our neural pathways. So I'm going to do a little bit of brain science here. And talk a little bit about how our brain works. Not too much, not too sciencey. But our brain is made up of over about 100 billion neurons, each with thousands of connections to each other, and each one receives hundreds of inputs every millisecond. The organization of these connections encodes your beliefs, your memories, your habits, your behaviors, and more. And from birth, this organization is constantly changing. The cool part of this is that we can purposely change the neural organization through directed effort. We can learn new habits, for example, through the process called neuroplasticity. And we can also learn to change our belief system through a process called the liminal process. It's important to just kind of understand that the way our brains work, there's this famous saying that says cells that fire together wire together, or more formally, any 2 cells or systems of cells that are repeatedly active at the same time will tend to become associated, so that one activity facilitates activity in the other. So for example, the end of the workday comes, I was a stress drinker, as I mentioned, the end of the workday, grab a glass of wine, and those 2 processes are linked, right? For me, that's how they were linked. In many cases, the linkages look like this. It's a party, let's have a drink, right? Alcohol is everywhere. It is embedded in our cultures, birthdays, weddings, funerals, little kids' parties, you name it. It's used for happy occasions and sad ones. Where this came from, it goes deeply into our society. Marketing, big alcohol tells us that drinking is fun. It's sexy even, right? We even have special glasses for it to drink out of. And that's created this belief in many people that when we go to parties, we drink alcohol and it's fun, right? So pretty easy belief to understand there. That belief might be deeply embedded into your belief system, right? So it's embedded into our subconscious or our subliminal process, so much so that we don't even question it. So it kind of looks like this. It's a silly little graphic, very simple, but that party equals alcohol equals fun, right? It's a party, there's alcohol, it's fun. So the belief might say something like, in our subconscious, parties are fun with alcohol, or I have fun at parties when I drink alcohol, or I need to have alcohol at parties to have fun, right? So you can see they're linked here by that neural pathway which has connected these 2 ideas of alcohol, party, and fun. So the trick here is that we want to kind of skip over the alcohol piece and rewire our liminal process or our belief system so that we can really just eliminate the desire to drink in the first place. So we're skipping over the alcohol piece and going straight from party to fun. And this is the liminal process. I'll walk you through this here real quickly, and hopefully I won't run out of time. So here's how this works. A series of questions. Now this is called thought work. So This goes a little bit deeper, like I said, a kind of a little bit out of scope for a 45-minute workshop, but a series of questions that you can start to think about to unwire them or these beliefs. By the way, this works for any limiting belief. Any limiting beliefs that you have in your subconscious, like I'm not good enough, not smart enough, I should be more of this. This doesn't necessarily, it doesn't only work for this alcohol connection here. It works for all limiting beliefs. It's where we're trying to unwire our subconscious beliefs, called this liminal process. So with a mindset of curiosity, we want to be just super curious, turn on your intellection talents, your learner talents, those strategic thinking themes. That's what's going to really benefit you as you walk through this. We need to first understand, why do you believe this? Why do I believe this? Where did the belief come from? Is it always true that every party has alcohol and it's fun? Is there any possibility that it might not be true? Is there any evidence that something contrary might be true? And what are some alternatives you could consider? So, again, you can apply this to many different types of limiting beliefs in your life. And let's just take the alcohol equals party equals fun as the example. Why do I believe this? Well, big alcohol, our society, our culture, like it's embedded everywhere into our culture that a party has alcohol, it's usually fun, right? Where did this belief come from? I just mentioned, right? So why do I believe this? Where did it come from? Is it always true? Well, is it always true that at a party you drink and it's fun? Maybe. Maybe it's not always true. So is there any possibility that it might not be true? Is there any evidence that something contrary might be true? And if you are sober curious or on this sobriety kind of journey, then going to a party without having alcohol and having fun, that's the key. You start to replace these memories and actually have a positive memory, a positive experience. For example, what else about a party is actually fun? Right? There's plenty of things about a party. There's socializing, there's dancing, there's fun music. Maybe you've put on a pretty dress or like done your hair and makeup, and it's a festive type of environment. Maybe it's outside and there's beautiful weather, right? So these are some possibilities that belief that alcohol equals that party equals alcohol equals fun. These are some possibilities that maybe that's not true. Maybe there's other things about a party that could be fun. Then when you start to actually experience that, that's where you can start to really change your subconscious belief and consider some alternatives and actually live an alternative. And that's how you change the process. So it's a beautiful kind of series of questions, starting with this mindset of curiosity, no judgment, but really untangling. I call it unwiring or untangling our subconscious beliefs. And like I said, when you don't believe that anymore, that alcohol, you have to have alcohol at a party to have fun, then you can have plenty of other ways at a party to have fun without alcohol in your glass. One of my favorite sayings is keep the ritual, but change the ingredients, right? You could put some kombucha in your glass or anything else that still is festive. Still use a festive glass, right? So I am running out of time. Just as I expected, there are two ways. If you are interested in learning more, I do a sober serious. For the sober serious, a 6-month coaching experience. And for the sober curious, I run a 31-day alcohol-free challenge and group coaching course. There's one coming up here for Sober October. I just do one a quarter if anyone was interested, or if you have any friends or colleagues that might be interested. My wrap-up slide is, hopefully I covered everything in my allotted time. We talked about what is gray area drinking. We did the 5 elements of well-being between physical, social, community, financial, and career. You guys all did some action steps on your well-being. I gave you some examples of how we can aim our talents at alcohol-free goals, and then the liminal process to just really take the desire away and thrive alcohol-free. I would love to stay connected. Here is all of my contact information. My website is mcgeecoaching.com, my email, my LinkedIn. So go ahead and look me up. And since she hasn't closed the session yet, I would love to just take any questions that you might have. And then a reminder that we do have an evaluation to fill out. Um, yeah, what questions, observations,
Okay.
feedback? What do you guys think?
I have a question.
Go
I
ahead,
have a few,
Marina.
but yeah, I have a few, of course, but the one that I think I'm curious about the most is when you spoke about, strengths and sobriety. So and let me know if it's like too personal or something, but do you think that, in your own experience, there were some strengths, like your strengths that made you more vulnerable to
Mm.
drink?
I don't think my strengths made me personally more vulnerable. I think my workload is what made me more vulnerable. I was a new business owner. My drinking kind of ramped up into my 40s. And as a new business owner, kind of mid 40s, or maybe early to mid 40s, um, I didn't see it creeping in as like quickly as it did, but kind of quickly in my mid 40s became, I was a daily wine drinker, and I know that's not all that uncommon, but it was, more on the weekends, and I just started to realize it's like becoming a tool, and I was self-medicating with it, and I think it wasn't necessarily my strengths. I think it was more just workload and burnout and stress, anxiety, kind of related to that, and I didn't know at the time how alcohol really contributes to stress and anxiety in your brain chemistry. So many things I didn't know, that saying like you don't know what you don't know. Good question. Thanks, Marina. But there are those couple, like the activator and empathy in particular, that I've noticed with clients that really do, people feel so deeply when they're empathetic, and sometimes people don't know what to do with that, and understanding that it really is a superpower and not something that you should numb with alcohol, because it can be such a benefit once it's used correctly, right? Marina, you have high empathy, don't you?
I have empathy number two, and I'm not going towards like drinking, but I am like having more screen time and just watching something and just like I just want to, So I have some other bad habits that I because I feel because of like sometimes being emotional overwhelmed, I'm going towards so not specifically drinking, but some other like
Some
things.
other escape mechanisms, right?
Yeah,
Some other
Netflix.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and alcohol is just one form of addiction, right? There's device addiction, and there's shopping, and there's gambling, and there's all kinds of other addictions. And my talk today was really specific on alcohol, but you could take all of those well-being slides and substitute in, anything like that, screen time, or
Yeah.
really, really anything that you might be kind of over consuming, food even, right? Sugar. Yeah. Nora, did you have a question, or Tara?
It's actually more of a comment.
Yeah.
So today is my 10-year AA birthday. 10
Oh my
years.
gosh,
Yay.
congratulations.
Wow.
10 years.
And
Wow.
and to put it in perspective, A, I would have never thought about putting strengths around this. And I want to talk to you more, Sally. But B, I
Okay.
forgot. I was so excited about the forum. And then I just got a text from my sponsor about an hour ago. And I was like, oh, crap.
Wow.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations. That is really amazing. 10 years. I'll
Maybe
get
too
there.
much oversharing. I don't
No, not
regret.
at all. That's great. Thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. The reason why I know all breakouts are going to end here in a minute, but the reason why I mentioned a couple of like the Sober Club and Laura McCowan's programs, and actually on the previous slide, I did a whole like website of all kinds of resources with, because I have high input, so my input needed an outlet, needed to provide resources for people. But I never really considered, I didn't know what gray area drinking was, and I never was like exposed to that as a concept, and that's why I wanted to bring that into today's workshop, is that it's a lot more common than people think, because most people think like, oh, you have a drinking issue, then go to AA. And there's so many other alternatives out there now that, not to say anything negative about the AA structure, but it's just different than some of the thinking now. Like even the liminal process that I walked through, that's new psychological thinking that didn't exist when AA was born in however many years ago it was, right? So it's just a different type of approach.
Well, I'm on the board of the Community Fairbanks Recovery Center here in Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
And we're always looking for programs. So I'm going to definitely touch base with you because it never
Great.
even clicked to put these two together.
Yeah. Yeah, well, great.
it-
I would love to connect. Oh, please do the session evaluation also. I should take down the slides here.
Terrific. Thank you.
And let me see if I can stop sharing and then drop it in here real quick. Sorry, I should.
My cats are now meowing, so I better go feed them.
All right, go feed the meowing cats. And Sally is not back yet. She's still recording.
I'm back.
So, can you stop your recording?
Oh, I probably should. Yes.